Good afternoon guys, good afternoon students. Please come quickly. हम लोग जल्दी से शुरू करते हैं. Okay. Okay, let's wait a little bit more. Then we can start quickly. So I hope everyone is safe. सब लोग अच्छे से हैं. Things are okay, in control there, everywhere. What we can do, or let's start. So students, will start now. Let others join in the meantime. So otherwise we will have to extend it later on. Okay. So good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. And today, again, we are continuing our last class where we were discussing about the probabilistic analysis. Now we had a good idea of what actually we want to do from a probabilistic analysis. We discussed how it is different from a deterministic analysis where we just get one value on which we decide uh, the stability of a slope. Here we have a probability distribution on which we are able to find out something called the failure probability or the probability of failure. We were discussing about what are the components when we do probability analysis. So we were discussing about something called the probability distribution function. We also went through some understanding of how a distributed set of single parameter like a cohesion or internal angle of friction can actually be converted into a frequency distribution and a distribution function. And that function we will be seeing how it can be actually used to calculate the probability of failure when we do a probabilistic analysis. So with this we start. Uh, Today what we will be doing is we'll be revisiting quickly what are these probability functions that we gone through, and we'll be going through two major ways in which we can find out the probability of failure. So first one will be the margin of safety method, and the second one is called the Monte Carlo simulation or Monte Carlo method. One of the popular ones which is used very prevalent these days, and even the software which we are using in our computer applications in mining, the limit equilibrium method software on slide. So there also there is a good we can do the Monte Carlo simulation in the statistical analysis. So probably if possible today in computer applications we will try to cover that. Uh, but before that we have to understand what it is and how it works. And we'll also be seeing what we actually find out when we do a probabilistic analysis. Like the factor of safety was an output from the last method that we were doing, the deterministic analysis. So what all we can find out is the probability of failure only thing. Are there any other ways, any other indicators of the slope stability? So we'll be discussing those as well. Right. So quickly, we'll run through what we went and saw last time. So there were many distribution functions. We saw the normal distribution function, which will be quite useful and will be used most of the time. So do remember the equation that it is. There is 1 by some constant that is defined by the standard deviation, right? And then there is the exponential power of minus zero point 0.5 and the difference between x and the root of it. Oh, sorry, the mean of it. So x minus x bar over sd the whole square. So this equation is very popular and will be useful if we have an idea what it is. We are well aware of what is the how we calculate mean and standard deviation, so that will be useful. Moving on, we have a triangular pattern. We saw these are unbound. Oh, sorry, these are bound between A and C, the maximum and minimum values, A and B, and the C value is defines the mode. So where the mode falls, where the maximum number of variables are there. So that was a triangular distribution. There was a beta distribution, which was bound between 0 and 1. So some values which generally are represented in 0 and 1, those can be actually found under normal under beta distribution. There was gamma distribution that was bounded in the positive direction only. So 0 to positive values can be seen in the form of gamma distribution, and even gamma distribution can be transformed into other kind of distributions like exponential or other similar distribution patterns based on what kind of value we give for alpha, beta, or in this case k and theta. So there are many functions. There were some more like log normal function we saw, where log normal function is where basically we are replacing. It's not shared. Screen is not shared. Screen is shared, I think. Amritesh, shared, right? Yeah. Check your other screens if you're doing from a mobile. There can be in some other screens, but I think screen sharing is working now. So yeah. So log normal distribution, we basically do normal distribution, but for logarithmic values. And then we were also seeing a uniform distribution where the same probability of happening was there for each and every event, something like a dice roll or a coin toss, where each and every event has a same probability. So many kinds of distribution functions we also saw, and we can even read about more. The whole concept is how our values will be defined into some distribution function or some equation that we can basically use further for calculations, and that's the whole point of so many distribution functions that are there. Now, yesterday, what we talked about, when we did the Excel exercise where we found uh, how the frequency changes, and on the basis of that, we found out a distribution function that was called a frequency distribution function. It can easily convert it into a probability distribution function. The only condition for a probability distribution function is the area under that curve or the area under any probability distribution function should be 1. Because total probability of anything that is happening that can happen is 1, right? So the whole point of probability distribution function is basically normalizing the frequency distribution to something that gives a total area of unit 1. And that's why we go for probability distribution function. So probability is because we may have different number of values for each C, phi, unit weight. We can have 100 values for C, maybe 2000 values for pi, or something. So much distribution may be there. So if we just go for a frequency distribution function, it will basically be relatively very different from one another, right? However, in when we go for a probability distribution function on the y-axis, at least things are normalized, because the condition for that is that the whole area below the curve will be 1. So that's why the area basically is divided on the frequency distribution side. So the base formula for conversion of any probability distribution function to a frequency, to convert a frequency distribution to a probability distribution is basically dividing it by the encompassing area in the frequency distribution function. When we talk about histograms like we drew yesterday, so we were seeing there are two things in that. There is a total number of values that are there. So we calculated basically 100 values were there last time. And this width, the difference between the two numbers, is called the width, where we were giving, last time we were giving something like 10, right? The multiples of 10, where we were trying to find out distribution of a number between 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. Here we see the 5 values are distributed in a difference of 2, right? So 29 to 31, 31 to 33, and so on. So a simpler formula, if we want to convert the frequency distribution to a probability distribution, will be dividing it by the total product of total number of frequency. In this case, it was 100. It can be any number that is relevant, and multiplying it by the width of the intervals. So width of the intervals is basically the difference between these intervals, 35 and 37, that is 2 here. Practically, you are seeing that what actually it is giving is the cumulative area of these bars, basically, right? So if we have some frequency and we have certain width, so the area, cumulative area of this part will be the product of the frequency and width, right? So if we total out all the areas, basically it gives a total sum of frequency into width, because width is constant. So the total number of frequency or the total number of variables of the same parameter into the width of division in this histogram. So this way you can basically convert a frequency distribution into probability distribution. Yes, last time we were also discussing about how we can change this probability distribution to a probability distribution function. And that's the important point, because probability distribution function is what we are looking for, not just the distribution histograms, right? So now when we have this probability distribution, we have these X and Y values, we can basically start fitting the curves, and we can, not here, but we can start fitting the curve by relevant equation. We can use Excel to do a basic one, but I'll be showing you maybe sometime in computer applications how we can do this much better in MATLAB, where we can put a Gaussian function or even a customized function we want to fit directly into the X and Y values. So if time permits, we'll do that today also. Otherwise, we can take up in computer applications class sometime. So moving ahead, let's see what we do from this probability distribution. Once we understand that we have something called probability distribution function for all the variables that I can get from the field, like a probability distribution function for cohesion values, similarly for phi values, unit weight, and all other things that can vary, right? So friction angle of that we have already covered. So once we have these probability functions, PDFs, we have certain equations. Now what to do? What happens? So there are calculating the probability. The concept basically is similar to that of calculation of factor of safety. We basically go for calculation of total driving forces and total resisting forces, and how we relate these forces gives us a difference in how we basically calculate the probability distribution or the probability of failure. So the concept for any of these stability analysis will mostly lie in the same way. We go for finding out which are the forces or how much force is there that is basically disturbing the area, and how much force is there that is basically protecting the area. So driving force and resisting forces. Now how we do it, there are two basic methods in which we can do it. The margin of safety method is one, and the Monte Carlo simulation or Monte Carlo method is one. What these are and what this is, before that we just uh, stop for 1 minute maybe to understand how the driving forces and resisting forces will be uh, represented when we talk about the probability distribution function. So when we talk about the probabilistic analysis. So when we talk about the probability, because now we have a varied input parameters like cohesion, friction, and all. So we'll also have a varying output parameters in terms of the driving forces and resisting forces. Generally, for simple calculations where the varying parameters do not multiply with each other or something, complexity does not increase. If we input a certain kind of distribution, suppose our inputs are mostly in a normal distribution, we are seeing on the left, the output also should come after processing in a normal distribution method only, or a normal distribution way only. However, it is not always true. But if simpler calculations are there, like multiplication, division with certain variables, or addition of these, so mostly the output will be similar or very close to the type of distribution function that was used in the input variables. So this is an important concept that we take care, and especially because most of the cohesion and friction values we will be seeing are either normal distribution or very close to normal distribution. So we can expect that the output what that we are getting from these calculations, the equations that we will be getting, or the distribution that we will be getting of the forces will be similar to the input distribution functions. Now, moving on, once we understand that, we move on to the individual methods. So margin of safety method basically, once we have calculated the driving forces and the resisting forces, in factor of safety, we basically found out the ratio of the resisting force to the driving force, right? And that gave us the factor of safety. Simple. In this margin of safety method, basically it finds a difference between these two. So which is greater? Is the driving force greater or the resisting force is greater? And that is the criteria of finding out what is the how much chance of failure is there. So margin of safety, basically margin indicates the difference, and that's what the margin of safety method does. So if you can see on the right side, there are two plots. These both are distribution functions and a normal distribution. One is representing the driving force. This is FDD. Oh, sorry, uh, FDF, and resisting force FDR. Right. So driving force is FDD, resisting force is FDR. So higher on the x-axis will the resisting force will be, lower will be the chances of failure, right? Because the driving force should be on the lower end, and the resisting force should be on the higher end in order for a slope to be stable. So in this case, what we are seeing is the driving force is the first curve on the left side, right? The resisting force that we calculated is on the right side. If both are very separate and the resisting force is far ahead, then there is no chance of failure, because what actually it is saying that any case of in any case of cohesion, friction, or any values of input parameters, there is no chance that the resisting force will be less than the driving force. If the case would have been they are far separated. In this case, what is happening is there is an overlap area. So in non-overlapping area, that is these parts, this cases basically means that the driving force in these parts will always be higher. The driving part will always be lower in the non-shaded areas, and the resisting part will be always higher in the non-shaded areas. So the interaction between the differences will be higher. But in the overlapping part, what basically this means is there are some cases or some chances will be there where the driving force, the thing that is on the denominator side when we calculate the factor of safety, is in some cases will be higher, and on the same time there can be some cases in the resisting forces on the which we calculate on the numerator side that can be on the lower side of the this setup. So in that condition, we can say that this area basically will be representing the chance where the failure can happen. And that's what practically it is. This zone represents the probability of failure. And if we calculate the area which is shaded here, this practically gives us the probability of failure. And that's the simple concept of the margin of safety method. Basically, it finds out which are the area that can have any value where driving force is more than the resisting force. And because it finds that area basically represents the chance of failure or the probability of failure. So, that's what it says here as well. The probability of failure is if the lower limit of resisting force is less than the upper limit of driving force. So the lower limit of resisting force that is here is less than the upper limit of driving force. That means there is a chance of failure. So the probability of failure will be more than 0 in that case, and what it will represent is basically the area that is there. Now, if we actually plot just this area, that means fd minus this function fd minus fr, fr minus fd, the opposite. So we will get some curve, right? That will be the difference between these two probability functions. And the curve that we get will, if both of these are in a normal distribution, this all, again, as I said, just the simple arithmetic calculations on similar kind of PDFs will generate a similar kind of PDFs as well. So subtraction or an addition or simple multiplication of variables or a linear equation consisting of these PDFs will basically lead to similar kind of PDF generated as an output. So here also, if we find out FD R minus D, that is the resisting force minus deviating force, this is something we will get out of the equation that will be generated there. So in this now we can see that there is there will be difference. So the difference between the mean of the difference between these will be actually the mean of both of these functions, right? If we calculate the mean of the FD R minus D, that will be actual difference between the mean of the resisting forces minus the mean of the driving forces. That will be somewhere here, right? The positive part. The standard deviation basically can be calculated very easily because these are the normal distribution curves. So the formula that you see on the base of your equation, that is the root of SD R square plus SD, basically similar to Pythagoras equation, or we are basically finding the hypotenuse of these. So SD R square plus SD D square root will give us the standard deviation of this one. And here, this portion, any portion where the difference is less than 0, that gives us the probability of failure here, right? This is same thing that is represented in this zone. So this whole concept of margin of safety basically deals with the differences in the forces, and the where the forces of driving forces exceed the resisting forces, though that zone basically represents the uh, probability of failure probable zone. Now this method is also, though simple, it has some advantages and disadvantages. So in terms of advantages, it is simple because we are not doing any complex calculations and all. And it is because it is only difference based, so there is no ratio involved. And as I said, if there is no complex calculation, so the PDF, the probability distribution function on the output side and the input side will be similar. So the calculations become very easy. And it is intuitive because anywhere where driving force is exceeding the resisting forces, that zone will actually be unstable. And that's what basically this margin of safety method says, right? However, this method is not applicable everywhere, especially if there is a complex equation where dependence of similar variables are on the both of these equations. Like in our case where we go for weight component in both of the cases, like the driving force is dependent on the weight of sine component, right? And the resisting force is dependent on weight of the cos component. So if such condition is there where both of these equations on the left and on the right are dependent on each other, then this method won't be applicable in that sense. So margin of safety, we can't uh, actually we can't directly apply on our kind of examples that we were doing when we were calculating the factor of safety, because the weight component is basically depending on the weight component is basically affecting both the driving force and the resisting force. So where is this kind of method applicable? Suppose we are analyzing a reinforcement sort of scenario where certain reinforcement is there, like reinforcement in the sense certain wall is there, and that is protecting the sliding block from failure. So in that sense, or there are basically both of these, the resisting and the sliding force, the resisting force and the driving force should not be interdependent. So that is one case. There can be other cases like the dam condition is there, where dam itself has its own resisting forces, and the driving force will be on the weight of water, which will not be affecting the resisting force of a dam, and similar conditions. So basically both should be independent. So these are some disadvantages of this method, and that's why when we have related differential functions, we don't use this method. So which method do we use? The second method that we will be discussing is Monte Carlo simulation. So Monte Carlo method, what it does is it is more versatile than margin of safety, and it can work on any mixture, number, and types of distribution functions, or the probability distribution functions. This was a disadvantage in previous margin method, that as you said, I think I have written somewhere or not. So I think it's not mentioned here, but this method, Monte Carlo method, can actually use any kind of distribution function, while in the margin of safety method, only certain kinds of distribution functions could have been used. So the very basic type of calculations can be done by margin of safety method. We can try to do it for understanding purpose. But when we go for complex calculations that we are actually dealing, then we go for some more complex methods, and that there comes the Monte Carlo method. Now, a Monte Carlo method, basically the functions can be and cannot be dependent in each other. And a certain set of uh, uh, like a flow of work is defined in this. So I'll be very slowly going through this to make everyone understand what we are doing here. So let's assume before we start that we have certain values of C and phi like we had yesterday or the last class, right? C and phi values are there. And there is a variation in C and a variation in phi, right? Let's keep these two variables as something that are varying, these two parameters. So there will be certain probability distribution function that will be coming out of both of these C and phi, right? What we'll be doing is, first of all, we'll be estimating the probability distribution for each of the variable input parameters. So as I said, C and phi. So whichever values are varying, like C is varying, phi is varying, unit weight is varying, we'll find out the distribution function of that. And yesterday, like last class, we discussed how we find the distribution function on the basis of frequency that can be converted into the distribution function on the basis of probability, right? Once we do that, we generate some random values. Random values in that sense that uh, uh, some random numbers are generated. And on the basis of that, we actually find many more values of C, phi, and unit weight that are actually in form of a PDF. Why we do that? Basically, because we want to basically find a better representation of that distribution. For example, say uh, I have 15 values that are of cohesion that is uh, divided into maybe certain pattern. Maybe it is giving a normal distribution, but we are not sure because 15 values and finding the normal distribution in 15 values basically is very tough, right? Because when we find out our frequency, it can be maybe like 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, something like that. So less number of values gives us more challenge when we want to find a function out of that. So what this Monte Carlo simulation does is basically it assumes if not defines a particular type of distribution function first for each type of variable. So based on like 15 values, it basically tries to find out which will be the nearest distribution function or the most approximate distribution function on this case. That also can be a user parameter. So even a user can enter the type of distribution function that he or she wants to define for the cohesion. Suppose we have only 15 values of cohesion, but maybe it is giving a triangular distribution pattern. However, we know that by field analysis, we know that if I would have got certain more type for more number of samples, and if I would have tested them, I am pretty sure that I would have got a normal distribution on a log normal distribution. I know this by maybe literature review or maybe certain tests that I've already done that. So on that field, we just have limited amount of data. So we can actually input what type of distribution also we want to. This method actually can have either predicted distribution function or it can have it as an input. When we go for the second, the generation of random numbers, basically this method, we actually generate more number of values in this. So if we have 15 values and we assume that there is a normal distribution function, then what this program will do is basically it will find out the mean of that values, like 15 values, it will find out the mean and certain standard deviation, or it can ask for a standard deviation if that is required. And then it will generate a set of numbers, like 1,000 suppose values of cohesion it will generate. Similarly, it will generate for friction. Similarly, it will generate for unit weight, whichever variables are there. And we want to basically, in whichever parameters we want to see the probability distribution. So why it does that is because it wants a representative sample that better represents the distribution function rather than the values that we have already obtained. So since based on values it defines the distribution function, now it has more number of values, suppose 1000 values for each of these functions. What it does with these values is it basically calculates for each and every value a factor of safety. Now, factor of safety can be calculated in a deterministic fashion that we were doing in the previous study, right? So just putting the values in the formula, we find a factor of safety. But now we have 1000 values of each of these samples. So we will have either based on what kind of analysis we have decided, it can either go for 1-to-1 factor of safety calculation where it gives 1000 values similar to that, or it can have a complete analysis where it will give 1000 into 1000 into 1000 different factor of safety values, right? All the combinations of these different values. And that gives us a chunk of factor of safety values, which are distributed in what all fashion that it can be. And then comes the analysis of this factor of safety distribution. So when factor of safety is calculated, what it finds out is, how many total random iterations are there? It basically finds a factor of safety for all. And finally, what it does is it finds out what is the fraction in which the material fails to the fraction in which the material does the total number of samples that were collected. So if we have 1000 number of iterations or 1000 random variables, basically what it will do is it will find out, okay, I have a failure in 100 of these factor of safety. So one less than one is 100. So the probability of failure will be 100 by 1000, that is 10%, right? So similarly, if it has a full range spectra of factor of safety, it will basically find out which are the factor of safeties that are less than one. It will put it in the numerator, put the total number of values in the denominator, and the fraction that will come, it will give us the factor of safety, the probability of failure. That's the whole point behind the Monte Carlo simulation. Basically, it starts with decision of probability distribution factor, goes with finding some random variables, generating some random variables for see all the values that are in statistical analysis of probability, finds out the factor of safety for each of these combinations, right? And finds out the ratio where the factor of safety is less than 1 to the factor of safety greater than or total factor of safety, and that gives us the probability of failure. So this is Monte Carlo simulation. What it's because right now we are not seeing many examples of how this will be. It might not be very clear how we are doing that, but what we can do is maybe later on we can try and see how these are basically calculated on a smaller scale. So we'll do that. One thing also I want to put forward before we go ahead is something called what are the things that we actually get from the probabilistic analysis. So factor of safety is one thing, right? We are getting the factor of safety. So in this, we are getting two types of factor of safety, right? The deterministic factor of safety that we were calculating before. And in Monte Carlo simulation, how many, all the factor of safeties that we got, the mean of those factor of safety can be another factor of safety value that can be considered, right? So the factor of safety that is deterministically calculated from the means or the original factor of safety, and the mean factor of safety from all the simulation, the Monte Carlo probability simulation that we saw. Now, if the number of values are sufficient enough, or the number of randomly generated variables are sufficient, mostly the deterministic mean reaches very close to the actual mean factor of safety that, the deterministic factor of safety reaches very close to the mean factor of safety. Depends on how many variables are there, what kind of variations we are taking care. But ideally, it should be close to that. Then we find the probability failure. Probability of failure, we have already seen the total failed upon the total number of samples or the total number of factor of safety. That is simple enough, right? And there is certain thing called reliability index. Now, reliability index is also a factor that is calculated from the probabilistic analysis. It basically gives us that how many standard deviations uh, are there from the mean to the point of failure, or where the factor of safety reaches 1. So when we saw the normal distribution, we basically uh, had some curve, right? And we saw that if this is the mean, there were uh, one factor of safety where most of the 67% were there. There was two factor of safety, right, where 95% was there, and there was third factor of safety where almost 99% of values were there. So this case basically gives us how far, if suppose this is the factor of safety, and this is the mean, and this is the probability function. So if here it is 1, factor of safety of 1, then how far is this distance from the mean in terms of multiples of factor of safety? So that is calculated basically by this formula, uh, where this is the mean minus the difference, that is 1 here we are talking about, upon the standard deviation, that is the standard deviation for this factor of safety curve, right? So when we have that, basically it represents how far or how low a chance is for the failure to happen. So reliability, generally we prefer that to be greater than or very close to 3. If it is there, that means 99% of the chance, more than 99% of the chance is there that it won't fail, right? If our slope is that much stable, if reliability index is greater than 3, then we sometimes say that okay, our slope is stable. So on all three of these methods, the factor of safety, the probability of failure, and the reliability index, we can actually find the criteria for the failure of slope or the stability of slope. Reliability index can be on both sides. A normal distribution, if I say I have assumed here a normal distribution, right? I could have assumed a log normal distribution of factor of safety as well. So if that is there, then a little change in the formula will be there. But the concept is same. How far it is, the mean is from the failure point, that is the factor of safety of 1. That is the reliability index. So do remember what we are finding. We are finding factor of safety also. From the probabilistic analysis, we are finding the probability of failure, an important criteria that is given in these kind of analysis, and a reliability index. So generally all three of these are reported, and when we do that, this kind of analysis is considered into the statistical analysis. So that's how we present our results uh, in this slope stability condition or similar. So right now I will stop here. Any questions we can ask, because I understand it will be not that intuitively apparent how things are done that easily, but when we see some examples, I think that will become easier. Yes, so any questions till now? I can have those before we can move ahead. Yes, Rohan.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, can you open that slide having the graph, that margin of safety method?
Margin of safety, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, in this, the FDR curve,
Mm-hmm.
sir, if it becomes narrower, then what happens?
If it becomes
Means
narrower and
the height of the FDR curve is less than height of FD curve. If the
right,
height increases, then will it affect the factor of safety or not?
no. So FD, the height, see, understand what we are doing here. The height basically represents the chance, basically the chance of our getting the factor, the this force to be on the mean side, right? Basically, this is a probability distribution function, right? That we are representing here. So if we understand what this represents, basically the height basically at any point represents the chance of that value to be in that zone on the x-axis. So अगर यहाँ पे if we have that r the resisting force is at suppose 1000 kilonewtons, so the height will basically dictate कि how much chance of getting that 1000 Newton driving resisting force will be is there. So any change in height will basically, of course, change this full curve because anyways we have to ensure that area below the curve is 1. But the height basically doesn't dictate how our factor of safety is directly. Indirectly, it will change because if we basically increase, suppose if I get if we increase the height till here, so the curve will basically peak up but become narrower, right? So now the this area is only the overlap area. So in that sense, yes, the factor of safety will change due to if the height of the function is different. But the reason is not just the height; it's about the whole shape. Basically, the concept is the lower limit of the resisting force and the higher limit of the driving force. The difference between these gives us the area or the chances of failure. Did that answer, Rohan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Anyone else? Someone else was there. Uh,
The fourth step, fourth step of Monte Carlo method. So can you repeat that?
First step of Monte Carlo method.
Fourth step.
This one.
Repeat process. Yes, sir.
Repeat the process. So what it says is basically it says this, which I described in the third step only, that because we have basically created so many random variables here, right? The variables which are basically representing c and phi, whichever is in the probability distribution. So for each of that, it basically creates a factor of safety value, and it repeats that repeats that process for all these iterations. So fourth step basically says that it calculates these factor of safety for the number of times it basically has created random variables. So if there are 1,000 random variables, so the iterations will be 1,000 or similar to that. Understood?
That random variable will be decided by the software, or we have to do that.
Uh, in settings we can change, but generally software also decides because see, as much as random variables will be there, the longer it will take for each calculation to happen, right? Because there are generally two ways in which they do it, is either one to one. So if I have 1,000 values of C, right, and 1,000 values of phi, so either it can do one-to-one calculation, so it will give us 1,000 values of factor of safety. Either that, or it can be something like 1,000 into 1,000 into 1,000. So basically 10 to the power 9 values of factor of safety. So this is defined in the settings. We can give definition how many random variables we want, how many iterations we want in the settings. But Generally preferred is something greater than 100 and between 100 to 500, something like that, based on how complex the calculations are, basically that way. Did that answer, Nitish?
Yes, sir. But sir, how to check whether it is optimal, whatever random variable we have choose?
Mhm. So let me explain this because I think many of you might have this doubt. So what happens is, suppose how much time is there? So if we have like suppose 5 values of C, maybe uh, C has 10. Oh, not good. So C has 10, so 12, 8, right? 5, and maybe how much will be there? 3, right? So these are on the higher side, these are on the lower side. So if I have just these values, so it is very difficult for any program to basically understand what is the distribution of this. It cannot generally have an idea of what is the distribution function of these 5 values. So what it does is it first asks that what is the distribution function. So I say, okay, I have a normal distribution function for this, where the mean will be somewhere 8 that I have, right? And on the basis of these, I can give a standard deviation, maybe because I have an idea of how distributed these are. So I would say, okay, 1.5 or 2 is the standard deviation or something similar to that. So what it will do is it will basically create these thousand values on based on this distribution. So the chances of 67% of these values will be in this zone. So basically, if it is 8, so let us assume this is 6 and this is 10. So from 6 to 10, it will create like 600 values from 6 to 10, right? Then it will create some more values on lower side from 4 to 6 and 10 to 12 and so on. So basically, that's the whole point of the random generation. Based on what kind of distribution function it detects or we give, it will create many more number of values for that function. So for cohesion, suppose it from our 5 values and our distribution function, it has created 1,000 more values of that. So that's what it basically does to basically represent well how the function will be. Did you get a little bit, Nitesh? Did you understand what it does?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So on the basis of these values, it basically calculates for each step. On the basis of each step, it calculates factor of safety, and finally we get the probability function on the basis of the final step. Uh, we'll take some very basic example in Excel also. We'll try to understand that in our next class maybe to see how these all things are done. Okay. Anyone else? Any any of you have any doubts? So it's important concept. It's an important way to find stability. Uh, we are many of us might have already heard about factor of safety, but when we talk about so much variations, we go for these probabilistic analysis, and uh, these type of analysis can vary. Monte Carlo simulation is one of them that we are discussing. We also have many other ways, basically many other methods to find out this stability, even in the probability distribution or the probabilistic analysis. However, because this one is more relevant to slope stability, so that's why Monte Carlo simulation is generally uh, more and well understood for our slope technology work. In other cases, like suppose there is stock exchanges and all are there. So even there, many of these probability analysis and all are done, and there are many algorithms to find out what will be the chance of this stock to fall, or what will be the chance for the market to go up or go down, and on the basis of that, people invest. And so probability is a big field, and really, if someone can understand it well, it really creates wonders in that sense. However, again, since everything has a positive and a negative, so probability also has a positive as well as a negative. So even though we have a prediction, we can predict to some extent. It cannot be foolproof in every case. So that also we have to take care. That probability anytime is just probability. It's not certainty. So that, keeping that in mind, we always do. That's why when we give a probability of failure, that is in conjugation with other methods like deterministic factor of safety and all. So that time we take care. Now after maybe after some time we will study the finite element method, where the condition of critical strain and strength reduction factor will be studied. So how with strength reduction we can actually find an indication of the safety factor, or how on the basis of critical strain slope is defined to be stable or unstable. So many things will come up. So now what I am basically trying to bring out to you guys is how things are done on field practically, rather than just the theory part. So we'll obviously cover the theory part, but my focus will be more on how we do it, the stuff that can actually be done. So these are methods, these are algorithms, and ways to do it. So that's why something new keeps on coming. Anyways, so I will stop here. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to ask. If not, we can close. And anyways, we are meeting for computer applications in next class. So we may also try to do some Monte Carlo simulations maybe there. So we'll see how much we can cover in that class. So do come in time so that we can cover more of that analysis in that class. So because it is fresh now, so I think that will be a good idea to do this probabilistic analysis in computer applications. So that will be a good idea. So let's do that. Let's do the probability analysis in slide software today, and we'll keep on continuing what we are doing also. But yeah, please do come on time quickly after when you are over with that next class of yours. And okay, guys, see you then. Let's close it here. Thank you.